Hello everybody, and welcome to my nightmare. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm not a funeral kind of guy, but I am a strike while the issue is hot kind of guy. So I will start by saying I met Donna when I was 15. That is a story I will take to my grave after I'm gone. Anyone who's heard it, feel free to tell it. But I met Donna when I was 15, and 4 years later, I became a born-again Christian. And shortly before I became a born-again Christian, Donna Summer became a born-again Christian. Because I remember, as I was coming to the Lord, but not officially there, she had put out a record called The Wanderer that had a song on it called I Believe in Jesus that made me cry. And I didn't understand why it made me cry. It just touched me in such a way. It was a beautiful song. But needless to say, I feel like I've been a lifelong Donna Summer fan. You know, as far as her work is concerned, I have nary a bad word about it. I love pretty much every song. And, judging by her last record, and not just the success of it, which was very successful, but the quality of it, I would say that, disco be damned, Donna Summer is an enduring artist, a legend. And I was really surprised today when I woke up to the news that she had passed away, and had a really weird day because I feel like I've lost something, but I don't know what I lost because we're not really friends, and she's definitely not one of the artists that I really clung to get through high school or something. But I did post on my Facebook, thank you for giving me a good reason to learn how to dance, because I was terrified to get on a dance floor. And when disco happened, and especially when I heard Donna Summer for the first time, I said, someone has to teach me how to dance to this. So I had my disco lessons. And I'm a very comfortable dancer now, thank you very much. And it all started right then and there in 1976. But in 1982, when I became a Christian, I had the good fortune of attending the same church as Donna Summer. So years after meeting her, she almost ran me over in the parking lot because she was rushed to get out of church, and I was crossing in front of the parking lot, and she almost ran me over and slammed on her brakes. And I looked up in horror. I saw her in horror. I realized, wow, that's Donna Summer. She looked at me and said, he's realizing I'm Donna Summer, so I'm probably not going to get the finger today. And then I thought about when we met, and that this was my just desserts, that irony would say she killed me. And I laughed, and she laughed, and winked, and we shrugged and waved, and then I realized I've stood in front of her car long enough, it's time to keep walking. That's the problem with going to church with celebrities, you can't fawn all over them. But I remember when she performed at our church, the pastor came out and introduced her and said, I want you to know Donna Summer's the real deal. She's not a fly-by-night Christian celebrity. She's the real deal. She came to me and submitted to learning about the things of the Lord, and we helped her navigate through being a famous born-again Christian. This is a really private time of life. I mean, babies don't even get to go out in public for a couple weeks after they're born. Born-again Christians shouldn't be attacked by paparazzi. And it's interesting because the two most famous born-again Christians in my lifetime were Donna Summer and Bob Dylan. And they both happened right around the same time, and I was there for all of that. And I saw two amazing artists, two of my favorite people in music history, just get butchered by the press and get butchered by Christians. Get it from all sides. It just never ended for either of them. And Donna Summer performed, and I've seen her perform several times. This was the best thing I'd ever seen her do, and I was also this close, because that's how church works. You know, it was an amazing night. It was an amazing night to see Donna Summer, the Christian, performing as a Christian at a church full of Christians, and how she would navigate. How are you going to do Love to Love You, Baby at church? You know, it was fascinating to see how it was handled. And it was an amazing event, an amazing event. And I've always said that Donna Summer has quite possibly the greatest voice I've ever heard. Her live voice was so spectacular. Hearing her do MacArthur Park was unlike anything I've ever witnessed in my life. But that's just me. But, I wanted to say one more thing. When I became a Christian in 1982, and saw that Dolly Parton was a Christian, and Donna Summer was a Christian, I prayed that they would both do gospel records. Because if you think about it, Dolly Parton is a given, but Donna Summer doing a gospel record would probably be the best record ever. To set all that talent toward one goal, what would it be like? Well, 1 year later, she released She Works Hard for the Money. She Works Hard for the Money. I wanted to count how many tracks were on it before I came out, and I forgot. But it was released 1 year later, and I know that 80% of the record were songs about the Lord. And then there were a couple other songs. And for someone like that, that's about as gospel as you can get. Because it's even better than recording a straight gospel record. Everyone's heard She's Worked Hard for the Money. That was a huge hit for her. It was a huge hit. That's a very famous song. And it's seen as very empowering in the women's movement. You buy the record, then you hear all these other songs. But there was also another song on the record, and the name escapes me. That's not true. That's just building up. That was a total song about Jesus that also was a huge hit off that record. Anyone ever hear of Unconditional Love? Big hit. And I sat there and I went, I prayed for this to happen. Dolly Parton subsequently, after me praying about it, always included one gospel song on every single one of her records. But she's had more than 10 records, so as far as I'm concerned, you put them all together, you have a gospel record, and I did that. Fascinating. But sadly, right when Donna Summer became a born-again Christian, something huge was happening on the planet. We had a new disease, the gay cancer, that all of a sudden gay men were getting sick and dying. And the most famous gay icon in history became the most famous born-again Christian in history. Imagine what that was like. I don't know who the converts are that will hear this, but the converts know. You become a Christian, you have to start telling people you're a Christian. You have to tell, I had to tell my parents. I had to tell, kids I went to school with, friends I used to hang out with, the band that I quit, the friends I used to party with. I had to start telling people I don't play with you people anymore. I have a song on Real Man available for free download on my website called Mistakes, about how I handled that period of my life, that I regrettably made everyone in my life feel like they were evil and I was perfect. Now, 30 years later, those lines are a lot blurrier than they were at the time. And fortunately, we get to run into people in this life again and say we're sorry. I was able to do it in song and say I'm sorry in person to a lot of people. But I did not have 60 minutes begging for an interview because I wasn't Donna Summer. I had the choice of privacy. I could have said to my friends, I need some alone time. I'm going to take a couple months off from going to parties and stuff and just think about life. I chose to hit everybody over the head with my Bible. But someone else was forced to communicate that they were a Christian because someone told them, if you deny Christ in public, He'll deny you to the Father. Now, that's what the Bible says, but that's not what it means in this situation. There's too many other scriptures that say you might want to watch what you say. The best thing we could do for new converts is say, keep your mouth shut for about a year. Tell 2 or 3 people to keep your mouth shut for a year. No, we blabbed to everyone. I can't tell you how many lunches I did when I became a Christian with people who wanted to yell at me and tell me, you know, that I'd gone off the deep end and what a loser I was. But I didn't have the press hounding me. I was also not at the peak of one of the most successful musical careers in history. You know, before Madonna, there was Donna Summer. And at the time, she was the biggest thing in the world. She was on the cover of every magazine. And she backed it up. The records were good. They've endured. You know, we heard Bad Girls, you know, tonight, and we're talking about how the whistles sound so good. I mean, this stuff was good. This was some of the best people working in music working with her. I'm still friends with a lot of the people that know Donna Summer. I have people today that are crying and preparing to go to a funeral. And I'm not that person. I'm not friends with Donna Summer. And I'm a huge fan, but I'm not going to say she was a great woman or a good woman or any kind of woman because I don't know. From what I've heard from people who know her intimately, I've heard everything from totally amazing person to maniacal beast. Oh no, that's my friends. But I've heard everything. I don't know. It's irrelevant. One thing I do know is the entire time that I've been a Christian, Donna Summer has been a Christian and stood for Christianity in some of the best possible ways. And she did, by the way, put out a Christmas record. That was a gospel record. It was the weakest of her career. So maybe I didn't pray for a Christmas record, by the way. But weak Donna Summer is still better than most everything we have today, by the way. But Donna Summer in the early 80s was asked, what is your feeling about AIDS? When obviously her fan base was hugely gay. I like all these heterosexual people now who are posting all over their Facebook how much they love Donna Summer back in the day. And I'm like, I don't know. I went to Donna Summer concerts back in the day and I didn't see you there. I didn't see you there. This was a pretty exclusive club back then. But she said that she believed that AIDS was God's wrath on the homosexual. And I am here to defend her saying that. I'm here to support her saying that. I'm here to say that anyone in her shoes would have said it, and she should not be remembered for having said that. Next week I'm going to do Jane Fonda, by the way, but this week we're on Donna Summer. And here's the deal. I know who told her to say it. I know them personally. I know personally the people that counseled Donna Summer and said to her, this is what you're going to have to do now that you're a Christian. This is the way you live. This is how you tithe. This is how you go to church. This is what you pray. This is what you believe. This is what you do. And when you're asked, this is what you say. Do you know that in 1982? Well, yeah, in 1982, 3, and 4, we all were wondering why it was just one group of people. And it was, even gay people were speculating that this may be a plague on gay people. Why are they being singled out like this? Everyone thought that day. Everyone thought that. Everybody, I'm not saying they were convinced. I'm not saying they were right, obviously. But it was the forefront of a lot of people's minds. It was a concern for gay and straight people everywhere to wonder why a single group of people were dying all of a sudden a horrible, violent death when no one else was getting it. And until a nun got it, until a nun got it, and that was publicized, it was a world mindset that it was a gay plague. So all the people saying you can't say it's a gay disease have to face reality that one time it seemed like it was. It seemed like it was. And people I know that have died of AIDS, which is hundreds, all but a handful were gay. So, 30 years later, I'm sorry, my gay friends. I mean no offense. But that's the reality. That's what the numbers say. And in reality, it is every Christian's right, no, obligation, to encourage humanity to not be promiscuous. That's a reality. That historically speaking, meaning biblically speaking, God has a tendency to react to promiscuity. Now I want to bring up Sodom and Gomorrah in a sentence with promiscuity. And I would like to say, I will not explain this tonight. If you want to know what I would say on the subject, look up Paisley Yankolovich sodomy on YouTube. Because there was no gay activity in Sodom and Gomorrah. Therefore, sodomy does not mean what we think it means. It's a word that was invented that we want to believe is about a time and place that didn't happen the way we believe it happened. If I had practiced that, I would have said it like this. We use the word sodomy to refer to one act that people do together. But that was not what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah, even though that might have happened, if it could have happened, to 3 angels. But moving on, God has a tendency to react to promiscuity. And the promiscuity in Sodom and Gomorrah was all but the angels in the house heterosexual. Listen to my sermon on sodomy and read your Bible while I preach, and you'll see what the Bible says happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. Period. So had Donna Summer simply said, I am not one to speak on the subject of AIDS, but I do know that God warns against promiscuity, and now is a good time for my dear, wonderful gay fans to rethink bathhouses, multiple partners, and drugs, so they can save their own lives. That would have been a very effective answer. Donna Summer is entitled to believe whatever she believes on the subject of homosexuality. None of us have ever been in her shoes that day when she said what she said and destroyed her career over it. But I would like to point out that Donna Summer loved Jesus so much that she was willing to throw away her career when it was at its height. That is one hell of a Christian example. The problem is, she caused a lot of damage that day. But she had been counseled to say things like that. We all have been counseled to talk like that. We've all learned things in church that we think are in the Bible that we repeat. Well, imagine the paparazzi cornering you into giving a statement, and you can't take it back. But Donna Summer was surrounded by handlers during this time. She had Christian handlers, and she had record company handlers. And everyone decided the best thing for this fragile Donna Summer would be to prevent her from watching TV, reading newspapers, and knowing what was happening in the media about her newfound Christianity. So I think it was about 2 years that went by before she really understood how many people hated her because of what she had said. So she set up an interview with The Advocate, which is the most popular gay magazine, and she apologized. And from that point on, she apologized. Every time it came up, she apologized. She said, ask any of the people who work with me. I'm surrounded by gay people. I've never, ever, ever been hurtful or judgmental to gay people. And she even said she never actually said those words exactly like that, and won a lawsuit against the New Yorker, which is a pretty substantial magazine, because they reissued that story. Now, the reason I'm saying all this is because we live in hate time. We live in hate time, where everybody wants to say the worst thing about somebody. So now that Donna Summer's dead, we have all the people that are going to say all these great things about her, and I'm one of them. I'm one of them. If she said that about AIDS, I wish she hadn't. Jack Hayford said those exact words, and I have them on tape. Jack Hayford was her pastor at the time, word for word. So, as far as Christians are concerned, no matter where you stand, we all have to agree. She was only saying what everyone else was saying at the time, period. So Christians can't have an issue with her unless they're mad that she retracted it. But let's be fair, the biggest reason she retracted it was because she didn't want to lose people to Christ. But the argument's always going to be that she wanted to save her career. You know what? If she wanted to save her career, she wouldn't have said it in the first place. Anyone with half a brain cell left would know that if your big target audience, the people that have made you a billionaire, are gay, you might not want to say to the press that God hates them. And this is someone who didn't get to where she was overnight. This is someone who went to #1 and held it there. This is like Madonna being that stupid, and we all know Madonna wouldn't have been that stupid either. But in these hate times, people are so divided. The Christians are going to say, oh, we love her, or they're going to say we hate her because she still represents disco and sex. She still represents disco and sex. But now, I'm seeing a lot of posts by gay people that say, why do we even bother mourning her? Isn't she the one that went public and said that God hates us and we're all going to hell for what we're doing? We live in very dark times. Whitney Houston, who died, forgive me, in her sin of choice, is royalty, well, she's divinity. And don't say anything bad about Whitney. But Donna Summer, who Whitney, if she were alive today, would probably be siding with me saying, Donna Summer influenced me, will be vilified for a very long time because of what she represents to so many different people. To every single person who has experienced Donna Summer for decades, she represents something to someone. Oddly, again, she represents someone that I know of as a Christian, as much as she represented someone that I knew as a superstar who I have all her records. What she said was wrong. But not wrong like you're a bad person and that was wrong. What she said was erroneous, as in ignorant. There was no malice, there was no hate in what she did. Probably ripped her in 10 places, and to have to say something like that. But she had just entered into Christianity. Bill Maher calls it the biggest cult in history. She just entered into an environment where people swoop down on you and tell you how to think and live. And if you're Donna Summer, you are a poster person for your newfound faith. So we got to make sure you get it right from the start. She got a level of training and discipleship no one else will get. And the problem is, she was a mouthpiece for the people that were training her. Now, I have to be honest, I'm not really sure Donna Summer ever really went back and thought people were born gay and it's okay and all that. I really don't. I think she stayed pretty conservative in her Christianity. So, fellow gay people, let's all hate Donna Summer. Let's all hate her for that. She's just like everyone else I know, unless they come around and open their eyes and mind and heart differently. Erroneous. Not bad, erroneous. But I am convinced that in my lifetime, I have said at least one bad thing that I wish I hadn't said. And then there's the Dixie Chicks, which is my favorite story of the same thing. They said one bad thing and it destroyed their career. They didn't do it for Jesus. Natalie Maines did it because she just had to say something, and boy, I bet she wished she hadn't said it. I don't think it's the worst thing she could have said at the worst time. I really don't. But look who's talking. Look who's talking. You know, I thought freedom of speech meant freedom of speech, not just when I like it or when you like it. But we're all good. Donna Summer stepped in it the same way Natalie Maines did it, but Donna Summer did it trying to be a good Christian. You know who I think was blessed by that? Jesus. And I think Donna Summer regretted it the second she said it, and for the rest of her life, all the way up to today, she regretted it. I bet she went to her death being afraid that she'd be remembered by her fans as the people, as the person who turned on them at the time when they needed her most. Because she can't take back what she said. And I bet she had to grapple with the people that taught her those wisdoms that she imparted to her fans. And I bet it was very hard to be her. And every single person I know that knows Donna Summer says this was a very, very conflicted person. This was a very shy person. This was someone who had an amazing voice, but not a lot of desire to be the center of attention. Very hard place to be. Very hard place. And I've said this about Madonna. Madonna is one of the most nervous performers I've ever seen. Watch her. She blinks a lot. You don't do that when you're not nervous. She blinks a lot. I think a lot of us performers are just like normal people who are terrified of singing and speaking in public. But our need to do it overrides it. But the fear never goes away. I can't imagine being Carly Simon in stage fright, but I'm Paisley Yankolovich, and I'm terrified to come out sometimes. Terrified. There's always a moment I'm terrified every night, that's for sure. But, again, the weight of the world isn't on my shoulders, and the whole world isn't waiting for me to speak when I'm a new baby Christian during a plague. During a plague. I've never felt more sorry for any Christian in my life than Donna Summer. Never felt more sorry for anybody. You know, I always wish that I could have had audience with her and just said, I for one was totally furious by what you said. And I defend your right to have said it. You did the right thing at the time. That was the best you could have done. You wouldn't have done it if you thought there was anything better you could have done. That sounds like forgiveness. That's when you look at someone and say, I know the difference between who you are and what you did. And I can see with my Jesus eyes that you meant no harm by it. But you had a gun to your head. You had a Jesus gun to your head, unfortunately. The reason why I'm addressing it is because it was unfair to put a new baby Christian in that position. And I'd like to know who made that happen. Because, let's be fair, if you go back to those years, Donna Summer was pretty big. She'd take 6 months to a year and not do any press interviews. We'd still listen a year later and she probably would have handled her speech better. What's unfortunate is she didn't say, God has always judged promiscuity. God has always judged promiscuity, and it's usually with a plague. That's the problem. Now, I, for one, am not saying AIDS is God's response to homosexuality. I am not saying AIDS is God's response to promiscuity. I am saying the best way to fight AIDS in 1982 and now is through abstinence. A virus can't keep going if it can't keep going. That would have been a very nice thing to hear come out of the Queen of Disco's mouth. And I'm not faulting her. There's no fault in Donna Summer in my heart whatsoever. Not on this issue. Maybe when I met her, she could have been a little more